They say death is the end, but in the 41st millennium, death is a mercy you're rarely allowed to have. Imagine opening your eyes to a sky burning with the fire of a million wars, knowing your life was never yours to begin with. Imagine fighting for an imperium that won't remember your name, dying for commanders who never knew you existed, and facing horrors that make the idea of death feel like a blessing you'll never receive. This is the truth the soldiers of the Astra Militarum live with every single day, and today, you will step into the boots of one of them, Trooper Elias Varron, a simple man thrown into a universe that devours hope and spits out bones. His story is not of glory. His story is not of victory, his story is a warning. Why being a soldier in Warhammer 40k is worse than death. Stay with me until the end, because what he becomes will haunt you long after the final word. Elias Varron never wanted to be a soldier, that he wanted to be a teacher, to write, to live quietly on his homeworld of Doranth Prime, a green, peaceful place where the loudest sound was the wind blowing through the silver pines. But in the Imperium, dreams are luxuries, and luxuries get drafted. The day the black-armored arbitrators came for the young men of the village, Elias's mother held his arms so tightly he could feel her nails digging into his skin. "They won't send you to the front," she whispered. "They always do," his father answered. Within a week, he was on a troop ship packed with thousands, boys pretending to be men, men pretending not to be afraid. They were promised honor. All Elias felt was doom. The training was brutal, but it was nothing compared to what waited on their deployment world. Vandros IX, a place that looked like hell, had personally chosen it as a vacation spot. Smoke choked the skies. The ground was cracked and blackened. And somewhere in the distance, something screamed, something that didn't sound human at all. Their sergeant, a scarred veteran named Rook, gathered them before their first patrol. "Listen well. War here isn't war. It's survival. And most of you won't." Not exactly comforting, their first fight came too soon. The enemy, chaos-twisted cultists, eyes burning with madness, their bodies marked by dark gods. They swarmed the Imperial lines like a plague, snarling prayers to horrors no sane mind could imagine. Elias fired until his lost gun overheated. He watched friends fall. He watched a boy he shared rations with lose half his face to a rusted axe. He watched hope melt away like metal under a flamer. By the end of the night, only a handful of his squad remained. Elias sat shaking behind a ruined wall, staring at blood on his hands that wasn't his. Sergeant Rook sat beside him, lighting a battered low stick. "You think this is the worst of it?" the sergeant asked quietly. Elias couldn't speak, so he just shook his head. Rook exhaled smoke. "Oh, kid, the worst hasn't even begun." And as the screams of the wounded filled the night, Elias finally understood what every guardsman before him had learned. In the Imperium of Man, living through the battle is sometimes far more terrifying than dying in it. 2 months passed. If time could even be measured in a place where the sun rarely pierced the clouds, Vandros IX was dying, and so were the soldiers sent to save it. Elias had changed. His hands no longer shook. His voice had grown quiet, heavy. He no longer spoke of home. He no longer remembered the color of the silver pines. War had carved pieces out of him, bit by bit. One night, their regiment was ordered to investigate a signal from an abandoned mining district. The moment they arrived, Elias felt something was wrong. The air tasted rotten, the shadows felt alive. As they moved deeper into the ruins, the lights of their lamps flickered, men whispered prayers under their breath. Then they heard it, a sound like metal grinding on bone, slow, dragging, approaching. Chaos. Wasn't the enemy here? This was something older. Something worse. The creature emerged from the dark, towering, armored in chitin plates black as a starless void. A Tyranid lictor, a hunter built for one purpose, devouring human lives for the hive mind. Panic exploded through the squad. Rook shouted orders, men fired wildly. The lictor moved like smoke, silent, graceful, unstoppable. It took Trooper Jalen first, lifting him into the air and tearing him apart before he could scream. Another vanished. Behind a pillar, only his helmet rolling back into the light, Elias froze, the universe slowed, and in that terrible moment, he understood why so many soldiers broke, why so many chose to run toward fire rather than away from it, because dying quickly was a release, but being hunted, being torn apart piece by piece, that was a fate far worse. Rook grabbed Elias's arm and dragged him behind cover. "You stay alive." The sergeant roared, "You hear me? You stay." The lictor's talon pierced Rook's chest, lifting him off his feet. Elias watched his sergeant's eyes fade, not in fear, but in relief. The monster turned to Elias, but before it could strike, the sky split open with the roar of a drop ship. Flammers washed the area and fired. A squad of Space Marines of the Salamanders chapter descended like burning angels, driving the lictor back into the shadows. Elias survived again, but survival felt like a curse. When the battle finally ended, a Marine approached him, massive, towering, wearing armor that glowed like a forge. "You fought bravely," the giant said. Elias shook his head. "No," he whispered, "I just didn't die." The Space Marine placed a heavy hand on his shoulder. "In this galaxy," he said gently, "that is sometimes the greatest act of courage." Elias looked across the battlefield, ruined bodies, broken weapons, the smell of burning flesh, and he felt the weight of a truth every guardsman knows: being a soldier in Warhammer 40k isn't about glory. It isn't about victory. It's about endurance, enduring horrors no one should ever see, enduring a life that often feels worse than death. But as he stood beneath the burning sky, something flickered in him, not hope, but determination that he would keep going, not because he wanted to live, but because someone had to witness the truth of this galaxy, someone had to remember the fallen, someone had to carry their stories, and if that burden fell to him, then so be it.